So Sharp Objects Episode 7, Falling, opens with Camille dreaming about Amma's dollhouse and looking at this dollhouse and the lights going on in their own. It's actually a really cool shot of her looking through the dollhouse, and this kind of sets up the importance of this dollhouse in this episode, how many times they actually show this. We'll get to that in a second. Then Camille wakes up from this dream and pretty much wakes up in a nightmare where she's in her room with Adora, and Adora redressed her in a white gown. Really creepy that while she's a grown woman, Adora stripped her naked at some point at night and put this gown on her to dress her up as like her little doll. So this scene sets up this whole episode for the reveal of Adora having Munchausen syndrome by proxy. So she insists for Camille to lie down, not to go to work, keeps hammering home that her ankle is hurt, and it has a very effective flash where it goes to Camille as a kid and Adora doing this to her. But luckily, Camille did not take that blue medicine Adora makes, which really actually makes you sick. And I like this scene ended with shot through the mirror of Marian in a white gown, continuing from last week where she says, "You're not safe here." And it's kind of like the ghost of Marian's haunting the house, looking out for Camille. And it relates perfectly to her being treated like Marian, symbolized through the white gown that Camille is wearing. So then we see a scene with Jackie O'Neill and Vickery at the gas station. Jackie has the great line of, "How's our girl?" And Vickery mentions his wife, and she's like, "No, the other one," alluding to Adora. And Jackie's like, "Are we gonna do what we always do around here? Acting like it doesn't exist?" And Vickery's like, "Yeah, pretty much." But this is set up for the big reveal of Jackie later on, and how much she knows that she's been hiding herself. And at her attempts to always uncover dirt. So you get a really interesting scene with Camille coming into Amma's bedroom, and Amma's in a white gown, playing with her dollhouse. She asks if Camille had the blue. So you can already kind of take from this that Amma knows what that blue medicine is, that it's not good for you. And she's like, "Mama takes care of me when I'm hungover." So Amma's been down this road before with her mother. And it's also great how Amma had in the dollhouse a figure of Alan the stepdad and Marian in a room. And then when Camille goes to touch the doll of Adora over Adora's room, Amma snaps completely. So they're shoving down our throat this episode Amma's protection of this dollhouse, and what is she hiding with this dollhouse? Why do they keep showing us it? Why during this whole episode is Amma protective of it? So let the theories come on in on that, and no book spoilers. And Amma quickly flips the subject and fills in Camille on how John Keane is in big trouble and he's going to be arrested today. So then we cut to Detective Lillis in the methadone clinic, and he's going to talk to the nurse who treated Marian, and he got that lead from Jackie at the bar. Interesting little line that one of the meth heads said coming up to Lillis really quick. I don't know if you caught it, but she was like, "Hey, you're that cop. I've never met anyone famous before." Now, I don't know if that's just alluding to us knowing that he's from a big city and he's a detective and he might just be known in the area as a hotshot, but maybe there's also a story there that we don't know, and it could be setting up if they ever went down the road of a season 2. Kind of like they did with The Sinner. If anyone watched that show where a side character, they leave a door open in case they want to re-pick up and make a new story. Maybe I'm looking too far into it though, but I think that'd be kind of cool if he had a bunch of skeletons in his closet they might explore. So the nurse in the next scene basically confirms to Detective Lillis about the MBP, Munchausen by proxy, and that it is when you make somebody sick so you can care for them and be a hero. And Wilson's like, "Why didn't you tell the police?" And she's like, "I did. And I lost my job at the hospital and never heard a word about it." So I'm sure Chief Vickery was involved with that. And it's a lot pointing to him having covered Adora for this because he loves Adora. So when Vickery obtains a search warrant of the Wheeler's house, just a quick thing to point out, it's kind of silly that there's no parents around when all these police are in the house searching Nancy's house. It's just convenient that every time this house is shown, this is a high schooler who lives in this big house, but the parents are never home. I thought that was kind of strange. In this show in general, a big complaint I've been seeing is how they introduce important characters, and then those characters talk about other characters that you might want to meet at some point. For example, Bob Nash talks about his wife. We don't even see her. You would think she was dead at this point. I mean, the finale's next week. What's the deal with that? It's the same with certain parents, certain relatives people talk about. You just don't see these characters. So it's a little lazy on that point of just, oh, it's more convenient not to cast them and not have them somewhat involved. I'm not saying putting them a part of the story, but acting like they exist in this universe would be nice. So Vickery gets a search warrant of Ashley's house. So this whole scene reaffirms All Ashley cares about is her image, and Vickery plays this perfect, saying to her she'll get her name in the paper, maybe even her face on TV, getting her to basically flip on John, so she squeals about the blood being under the bed. Totally betrays him, all for the glory, which is a very popular thing people do in this town. There's no decency. It's all about being the talk of the town. So then one of the most hateable scenes of Adora here is when she's in Amma's room taking care of her, and Amma's pretty resistant, but Adora starts using guilt manipulation on her child. You don't need me to make you feel better. You don't need me to make you a grilled cheese. You don't need this dollhouse. You're too mature for it, and grabs it, and then again Amma snaps when someone touches it. So keep an eye on that. This is her using reverse psychology on her own daughter to make her sick. And this reaffirms the line too, where later on, Amma says, you want me to stay little. You don't want me to grow and be an adult. Because she's basically even talking sarcastically like would be a shame if she was sick of her dollhouse and was maturing. That's not what Adora wants. She wants to replace that void of Marian. And you can't take care of adults like you can take care of little girls. Can you imagine this mom, Adora, sending off her kids to college? How crazy she would be? Like, talk about empty nest syndrome. And Adora's like, it hurts me that you don't trust me to do the best for you, while she poisons her daughter. So really strong scenes in this episode were between Detective Lillis and Vickery. And Lillis calls Vickery out and says the witness to the bike in the swamp works in the day, not at night, so how could he have been there at midnight? And Vickery's like, oh, he was a crap witness, just needed to get a warrant. So that makes Vickery look terrible. It really highlights the shadiness in Vickery and just wanting to get this case over with, while Lillis really is for the true justice of a case. Vickery covers this up basically by saying they found Natalie's blood under John Keane's bed, which obviously looks terrible and would be the thing to kind of sway Willis's head a bit here. But Willis still goes at Vickery here and says, what do you know about Marian's death? And Vickery gets testy about this and says it's all ugly gossip. And he's like, did you hear this from the same nurse who ended up in a methadone clinic just so she could be around meth? And Willis, always with the best comebacks, goes, no, that's just ugly gossip. So right back at Vickery. Really good scene. So then Camille goes to a bar a little outside of town and finds John Keane. And they have this very flirtatious, almost date-like scenario. And this scene really frustrated me. Already starting off with this stretch of her just, oh, he must be at the other bar the next town over. Why isn't John running even further away? And what are the chances that he's staying there all day and she know he was there, and then when she goes there, he's just chilling? And how stupid are all these other cops in that town not thinking of that, and just Camille is? And a lot in this scene just confirmed me, John is kind of an idiot. Like, he is self-aware, but he's still making himself suspicious. Because Camille's like, just say you didn't kill your sister. And he's like, oh, no, you just want a story. No, she's looking out for you. Just stop making yourself shady by not answering questions. Like, he knows he's making himself look guilty. Like, why drag that out? It's not believable at a point. And that, to me, is sloppy writing, because it makes it seem like we can't have John just admit he didn't do it or fight against it, because that would make the story go too quick. So they drag it out with his silence and him beating around the bush, and I just don't justify why he would do that. Unless he's an idiot. And then John does his fake story to prove that it'd be crazy if he did do it. But then there's a cringeworthy speech that just rubbed me the wrong way when he does a brother misses his sister so bad, and he starts tearing up, and it was just like, ah. And then, after all this monologuing by John Keane in this scene, finally says he didn't kill Natalie. After the interviews he's done with Camille, it just was frustrating that this is when he finally says it, and he's still just chilling at this table, not caring if he gets arrested. Oh, and while he's at it, let me just throw in the next line saying to Camille, you're beautiful. Felt like a scene that Chad Michael Murray would do. Some heartthrob thing going on here. And to me, it felt like it was forcing really fast this story of how Camille would end up having sex with this guy. So they were like jamming two big things into one scene. And then they're flirting, walking out, and he's laughing, and he's like, I'm gonna drive myself into a station or drive myself into a lake. And then she wraps his arm around him like this guy doesn't have a warrant out for his arrest. And what is she doing? She's not thinking that I'm with the top suspect here, and kind of just goes away from her job and all of a sudden really wants to get with John Keane. I don't know. I wasn't crazy with this scene. And he kind of lures her in now to go back to a motel with him, and he's like, prove you're not dead to me. And it's weird because they're kind of bonding over both losing a sister, and they're kind of using it as a way to sexually attract each other. We'll get back to that in a second. So Willis finds the hospital that Amma had a lot of stuff done to her by Adora, like a feeding tube put in her. She's already been a huge victim of this condition. And he finds out about Jackie O'Neill putting autopsy requests and looking more and more into Marian, because she clearly was aware of what was going on. So the scenes with Lillis in this episode were great and kept this pace going and were very, very interesting in getting to some resolution here. So Vickery gets a lead of John going to this motel, and he texts Lillis, and they're on a high goose chase to go after him, and Camille's just strolling around with John. I feel like this whole sequence with Camille and John would have worked 10 times better if Camille wasn't told by Amma that there was a warrant out for John's arrest. Because I feel like her not knowing would be a better way to justify her lollygagging and then her really being shocked when Vickery and Detective Lillis come into the room. And also showing her feeling hurt by Lillis not telling her about John being targeted for arrest. I get they wanted her to know, so it makes sense why John's talking to her about things, but I don't think it was worth the sacrifice for that. Because I do not buy that Camille would be this stupid. Just strolling around. Not on her toes like she's been this whole show. So Amma's really getting sick in bed. She confronts Adora about her wanting to be just like Marian. She doesn't want her to grow up. So you're really starting to wonder here, what is Amma's endgame with Adora? And they're kind of nicely building up the suspense between those two. So now, as much as I'm ragging on the John and Camille story here, I did like how sympathetic John was towards Camille's cuts, and Amy Adams' acting here was phenomenal. How she was reacting to her taking her shirt off and exposing all these things she's ashamed of to John, and him being so understanding. What hurt the scene a little bit was them not making enough of a point about when she had sex with Detective Lillis, that she was really trying to hide those cuts. They kind of casually did it and didn't make enough of a stink of it to show the contrast, but still really worked great here. And this makes John look like a really good guy, and it really was kind of beautiful how these cuts almost opened her up fully to this guy she's about to have sex with, and there was something really, really connecting between the two of them through their suffering. And this is the most real sex she's probably had in ages, because it's her fully naked, not ashamed, and comfortable with someone. So it's almost tragic just to have these cops time it that they knock through this door when this is happening. So this really was a beautiful, effective scene. So we cut to Adora crushing pills that make her contraption of some sort of poison. And what really worked here is they finally show Adora dancing happily and not all tense and anxious in pure joy to Alan's music finally. And it's showing you that her taking care of Amma really is her happy place. This whole syndrome is her happy place. And all my fellow Amma theorists believing that she's a killer, which I am sold on now, let's lock it in. I will bet high bets on it now because of the scene where she runs into Camille's room really fast, looks on Camille's laptop, and then finds files on the murder case. This, to me, was a huge lock that Amma killed these girls. I mean, why else would she be running in there? It's kind of strange for them to show this in episode 7 right before the finale. This might have been something they could have revealed in the finale. I mean, I haven't seen the finale yet, so we'll see if it worked. But it felt like a jump of the gun in a way. Like, don't show your full hand here yet. Because that's not just like a hint, that's confirming. Why else would she run in that room? So then when John and Camille are laying in the bed together, we get a confirmation now that Natalie Keane's a biter. She bit John. So now we know she bit Ashley's ear. And he does a big reveal where he's like, only person who cared about Natalie was your mom. Saying that Anne and Natalie referred to as the lost girls, the ones everyone gave up on, but Adora just kept coming back for more. Then he says that they would fight, physically fight Adora, and gave Adora stitches. So he's dropping huge information here. And this confirms now that Adora was basically making these girls sick as well. And this Munchausen by proxy was passing on through multiple girls from Adora. And I love the flash here of Camille resisting Adora when she was a kid. And she has the great line, she's like, I never let her solve me. And then it flashes to Marian in front of the fan. This really fantastically showed survivor's guilt on Camille's part. So maybe you can argue Camille is smart, and she's not as dumb in this episode as saying, because she got John to reveal this information. I'm just going to keep going back and forth in my head about that one. I don't know how I feel about it totally yet, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. But then, bam, Lillis and Vickery come into this motel room. My jaw dropped. I was shocked. And Vickery possibly is the best line of the season, where he goes, "You of age, son," and looks at Camille. I loved it. It was my favorite moment. Just checking, doing his job, seeing if he might get Camille on something. And it made me forget, too, how young the kid was. So it worked, because he's like, I'm 18. Perfect line to throw in there. And this is as embarrassing as it gets as a professional for Camille. These are two guys that you've sort of been on the same path of trying to get this killer with and competing with, and now you're showing you're sleeping with number one suspect. But Willis snaps, and he's like, this real stinks of you. Believe me, I know the smell. Sounding like Adora here. And Willis is pissed, and he has right to be mad, but he's very overprotective for a girl he's not committed to. But this makes sense for his character because this is the guy referring to investigations they're having as dates. So he's definitely a loner, and he does get emotionally attached fast. And it makes sense for Camille because she runs. And he drops the bomb to her, and he says how they found Natalie's blood under John's bed. Sounds like he's almost giving up. And he's like, it's back to earth for us. It's always the family. And Camille's like, we both lost people, me and John, trying to kind of justify what just happened. And he's like, oh, you guys are comforting each other. He refers to them having sex. Says some mean stuff to her. But then he gets weird. He's like, I've been studying you for the past 24 hours. So he's kind of psychotic, Willis. And there's some really good writing here. He's like, I don't think you're bad. I just think one bad thing happened to you and you blame the rest of your life on it. And he goes, people really buy your sad story, but you're really just a drunk and a slut. Brutal. Brutal, brutal, brutal. But this adds to the debate of Camille I've seen in the comments where some people don't think she's the greatest person. Some people don't like her. Maybe she does have a little bit of martyr syndrome in her, in all this self-hate, where she also justifies it because she feels like she's been wronged. You could look at it that angle too. It's an interesting character study on Camille. I don't say I would go there, but I could see why some people would. But Willis still puts the job first and leaves Camille all the proof she needs in the car about Adora, which was awesome because that would have been super frustrating if that was held from her. So Camille sees that Jackie was constantly trying to get access to an autopsy and information on Marian and Adora and what was going on there, and she was denied. So this is going to cause Camille to freak and drive over to Jackie's place. So this episode's really amping up and stuff is hitting the fan. Now another angle, really quick, I want to talk about that last scene with Willis and Camille. Does anybody think possibly, because I feel like people are going to say this, that Willis was hamming it up a bit to make Vickery think that he was fully on board with what Vickery was doing with arresting Keane, and then him sneaking and giving those files to Camille so Vickery wouldn't be suspicious? Does anyone think that could be a thing? I thought it was kind of tricky to read. I did not see it that way, but maybe you did, so I'm interested to hear that. So Camille ends up at Jackie's, and this is definitely Elizabeth Perkins' best scene. I was laughing out loud when she was showing all the pills she takes. Good Lord. And basically Camille confronts her dead on about all this and was like, what were you looking for when you were denied all that information? And Jackie tells her that she did the best she could, but what was she really going to do in the end? And she reveals to her that Marian was cremated. Clearly Adora covering her tracks to the police. And Jackie knew about this. So this sets Camille off. And I love the effect they have here when it triggers Camille and then Jackie's voice starts fading away. And it all starts to connect in Camille's head with the woman in white being Adora, calling Natalie into the woods, having Marian as a baby. All of this connects now. And Camille snaps. She's like, you just let this happen. And Jackie's like, I did what I could. And Camille's like, no wonder you're sick. So we get a nice explanation and kind of resolution of Jackie O'Neill's character and why she was such a drunk and upset. And she does have a lot of good in her and just could not really take care of it. She tried a bit, I guess, but didn't go the extra mile, which pissed Camille off. And then she didn't tell Camille about the cremation, which is a huge thing. So Camille's crying, driving, and she calls her boss. I really love this boss, and I love the wife. And they're so comforting to her, and they're really like her parent figures. And these two characters are so integral to this show, because without them, it'd be really hard to watch. All these people would be so mean to Camille. And they're always that thing she can fall onto, like a family. And she's crying. She's like, my mother did it. My mother did it. She's doing it again. I need to take care of it. And she's clearly referring to Amma. And knowing now that the mom was using the blue medicine and is getting Amma really sick. And I'm sorry, but saying it now, lock up Amy Adams for the Emmy for this scene. This was it. So damn good. The way she was crying, the way she was talking about it, the way she was panicking. Oh my God. She's just been note for note this series. Spectacular. And shows why she gets that big paycheck from HBO and why this is a limited series, because she costs a lot of money. But she is worth it. Really interesting thing here too is Vickery in these scenes driving around and seeing the two girls without their third person in Amma. This shows the importance of a local cop on a case like this. This is something only he could notice and not a Detective Willis because he's out of town. And this episode really highlighted how important on cases like this, it is to still have the local sheriff involved and an out-of-towner detective, so it's not any bias covering up that Vickery does. And Vickery's clearly affected by the girl saying that Amma's sick, and this reveals to me, I believe, that he clearly knew about Adora making Marian sick, and now he knows what's going on with Amma, and he's conflicted in his head of, is he going to let this slide again? And this girl could get killed. But he loves Adora, so he's conflicted. And then we see Alan. He definitely knows what's going on. He's panicking. He's got his music and his headphones on, and he's thinking about Marian, and now he's thinking about Amma. And the flashes he's thinking of shows that blue bottle and the gown, so he is totally aware of what's going on and what Adora is doing to Amma and what she did to Marian. And he grabs a knife in his hand. So is he planning to go kill Adora here, or is he going to hurt himself? So this is all amping up for the finale. And then Amma's got the crown of flowers on upstairs. She seems like she's going to snap because she's also aware of what's happening to her. And Camille is aware of this, and she's arriving to the house. So everything's about to explode on Adora here and between everybody. And I love this close with that beautiful shot in the hallway. And it's like a shrine of Marian's ashes that were sitting there the whole time in the hallway. No wonder Marian's been spooking the house. So it was basically all under Camille's nose right there. It's a great episode. I'm giving this a 9.3. It really set up a finale well. I got pumped for it at the end there. I cannot wait. And remember, this episode definitely confirmed that Adora made Marian sick, is making Amma sick, killed Marian by making her too sick, and that she was making Anne and Natalie sick. But you gotta understand, it doesn't confirm that she killed Anne and Natalie. That just wouldn't make any sense, especially with the teeth pulling. So the red herring they're clearly setting up here is that she murdered those girls too. But that is not the case. They wouldn't just reveal that now and then just have the finale. We still don't know who murdered those two girls. We know who made Marian sick and is messed up, but hold your horses there. What stood out for me in this episode was Amy Adams went above and beyond here, proving to be maybe the best actress in the game, and that includes movies right now. And Vickery and Willis' stories were strong here especially. They really are closing their characters out well here, and everything's kind of getting answered with them, and they were the ones amping up this episode. And the only thing really bringing this episode down for me was the Camille and John scene at that bar. I'm still thinking about that line, brother who misses his sister so much. Rolling my eyes. Call me an insensitive prick. I don't care. It just was too much. Also, my other complaint too is maybe this hints of Munchausen by proxy for Adora was a little too heavy the last episode. So the reveal kind of felt a little weak. And it was almost too heavy in the beginning of the episode. You gotta sneak it up a little more. I was kind of just handing you this on a plate. But overall, really good episode. One of the better ones of the season. What did you guys think of it? I'd love to hear. And what do you guys think is going to happen in the big finale next week? You know my review is going to be up right after theirs, so you don't want to miss that. I cannot wait. Please subscribe, and please follow me at SteveVarley1 on Twitter and Instagram for more of this. And I will see you next week. I cannot wait.